one-offs. But in any event, they opened an office on Malcolm X Boulevard between McDonald and Decatur. It's a large edifice, and they say they intend to bring 45 agents in. And the reality is that you wonder, what are they going to do? 45 agents in one neighborhood. So what my daughter said to me is they're primarily developers. So now they come, and they said that our neighborhood is the new neighborhood. It's the new Williamsburg. So, and you know, they have these beautiful high-rises now in Williamsburg, you know, by the water, not affordable to the average person. And what are they going to do? I have to wrap it up. What are they going to do in our neighborhood? Are we going to get these giant high-rise buildings? The bottom line is affordable housing no longer exists in Bedford-Stuyvesant.
I'm one of the tenants that I'm middle class, and I'm finding out more and more. I'm finding out more and more that I can afford any of these apartments with 2 people in the household. My salary is over. So in all of these neighborhoods, the buildings that they build up, I'm not qualified for an apartment because I make too much. Now with 2 people in the family, it's very difficult for me to find affordable apartments. And 5 years ago, they were very affordable, but now we are phased out. Middle class, we have no clue anymore. And I'm still looking, and it's very difficult.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, my question is as far as affordable housing with preferential rent, because they tell you, okay, your apartment is worth $2,300, but we'll give you a preferential rent and we'll take off a certain amount. So you're under the impression that I'm paying $1,500, okay, or $1,100. I can afford this, but they can come up with whatever they want to. If you are late for paying rent or something like that, then they can say, you know what, since you were late, we're gonna make you pay the market rent. So it's still not clear. You think you're in affordable housing when you can afford to pay for something, but then they can take it away from you at a drop of a hat whenever they want to. So even though they may say this is affordable housing, again, if you have a preferential rent and they drop it, then it becomes not affordable again. So, I mean, so my question is, like, if they offer these these 2,000 apartments, and they provide a preferential rent, then it's affordable at that time. But then if somebody decides, if they have a hard time paying rent or whatever, then it loses its affordability. So what are the parameters that make it stay truly affordable?
And take this up to Michelle so she can address that. Oh, there's a mic up there.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would say is that when the housing is built at Atlantic Yards or any affordable housing that's built with government subsidy dollars in the city of New York comes under rent regulation. And you make a good point that an apartment's legal registered rent can be a certain level, but the landlord can still then give you a preferential rent. And it's kind of like a credit card, right? You might get a good introductory rate on the interest, but if you miss the payment, then it goes to the default rate. It's the same idea, right? There's not necessarily anything illegal about that, but there are certain rights that tenants that live in rent-regulated housing have, and those tenants at Atlantic Yards, whenever it's built, those rights will be available. The one thing I would say, though, is it's absolutely important that we fight to preserve those rights for rent regulation. You know, Gib mentioned on the slide that showed the negative number on the affordable housing, 171 units. Those were rent-regulated units that were in the footprint on Pacific Street that were lost. And I can tell you from direct experience that the tenants that lived in those units were earning less than $15,000 a year on average. And none of them will be able to afford even the most affordable unit at Atlantic Yards, because none of them will reach that level of affordability. So The most affordable housing we have is the housing that was built a long time ago, and we need to preserve it in addition to building new affordable housing that is truly affordable and available to families. All these are extremely valid points, but we're at a unique moment in time right now. We're circulating the petition to Governor Cuomo. And if you haven't signed it, we'd ask that everybody sign it, because this is a moment of leverage, right? Where our government should be calling, representing the public and making sure that that housing is delivered quickly and is truly affordable. Those are two things that need to happen, because the longer we wait, the more the neighborhood changes, and the word affordable means less and less over time, because our incomes don't catch up to how incomes are going up in the metro area. It's two different things that are going on.
I'm really curious about how you're helping the seniors with affordable housing, because as grandparents, we are raising our grandchildren. We cannot even go into an assisted living facility or a nursing home, because some of us are raising the next generation. And by the time they look at our Social Security and our little pension, we're not even eligible for affordable housing, based on the income they are telling us that they have already, that we must meet. My husband and I, we have tried several that came around. We even had the help of CUFF. I don't know if you're aware of them. Churches United for, okay. They are helping us a lot in community board too. But as seniors, our income is just not working.
Yeah, a lot of the challenge is that the incomes that folks have are too low to qualify even for the most affordable housing, right? And that is the big issue. And if you're on a fixed income, then your income's not anticipated to go up.
I have a question and a statement. I kind of agree with this lady here, because right now there's a movement where I live in Community Board 8, and I live facing the Botanical Garden Brooklyn Museum, and we're being bombarded over there with increase in rent that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So people who've been living there, like you said, for generations. What the landlords are doing on that side of Brooklyn is MCI improvements, mass capital improvements. One building, we have on that stretch of Washington Avenue, there are 9 buildings. One building had 3 MCIs in 2 years. A quarter of the people that lived in the building, because the rents were going up faster than, like you said, their incomes, they had to leave. And the remaining people that are there fighting, they don't have a tenants association. They don't have a tenants association because the person who was on the tenants association, she had a stroke. So now they don't have a tenants association because nobody wants to pick up the responsibilities that she was carrying. So they're being pushed out with all kind of court actions, hoarding, and they're not even hoarding.
Harassment.
Harassment.
Litigation. Yeah, so just like Fifth Avenue Committee, we'd be happy to follow up with you afterwards to see if we might be able to be helpful to you and your residents.
Well, I don't have that particular problem. In my building, we had an MCI and we fought it. We're still fighting. The PAR's been submitted, and we're still fighting the MCI for the landlord claim to do certain things that he didn't actually do, and we won $167,000 reduction off the almost $1 million rent increase to the rent, plus 8 months off and 18 months back arrears. But because of that, there's been a backlash. Okay, so what you're talking about with Atlantic Yards, I can see how it's radiating back out to where we are. You understand? But I want to know exactly what's going on at Atlantic Yards, because what I'm looking at is overall the rent regulations for the entire city, not just Atlantic Yards. Because we're stabilized tenants and we have to fight to keep the stabilization laws, because if you lose it, you're out, you're gone, it's over. Does Atlantic Yards fall under the rent stabilization guidelines? Because if it does, then we have a unified fight. If it doesn't, the division starts right there.
So you you brought up a lot of very, very good points. MCIs are major capital improvements under the law, rent stabilization law. When owners make improvements in rent stabilized buildings, they can pass a portion of the cost of that capital improvement onto the tenants in rent increases that are over and above the normal rent increases that happen. And that's the MCI that you're talking about. And there's been some fast and looseness with MCIs with some owners where they say they did a $100,000 renovation of an apartment and they produce things that say that, but everyday people who walk into the apartment know that it might have only cost $20,000. And that they're trying to charge the $80,000 in fictitious capital improvements as rent increases. So it's what you're saying is something that people have to be very, very vigilant of who live in rent stabilized housing. But you've enjoyed certain rights. So all the victories that you and your fellow tenants had came because you had rights. Folks who live in brownstones where there's less than 4 units, you don't have those rights. The owner can change their mind one day to the next and have the rent go from $500 a month to $2,000 a month, and there's nothing to stop them whatsoever except their conscience. And so it's very important that we fight for improving rent stabilization. And as I said, the units in Atlantic Yards, when they are built, will be subject to rent stabilization. So that's a given at this moment in time. Not to say that it wouldn't be a fight in the future. But what we're fighting for is making sure that those units are delivered faster because the need is now. And Marjana asked me to tell you, at Fifth Avenue Committee, we have over 9,000 people on what we call our housing notification list. That's just to be notified about the opportunity of affordable housing. Over 9,000 people, and that's just our organization. There are 57,000 people in the shelter system in the city of New York. And there's so many children that they could more than fill Madison Square Garden and part of the Barclays Arena with the homeless children that are in our shelter system. And that doesn't count the people that are doubled up and tripled up, and the people that are paying 50% of their income towards rent. Doesn't count any of that, right? So we have a very serious affordable housing crisis that we need to address. And this is, the gentleman that mentioned City Point, this is just one piece of the puzzle, right? The Atlantic Yards project is not going to solve New York City's affordable housing crisis. By no means is 2,250 units going to solve the affordable housing crisis. We need to build over 300,000 units to try to solve that. But it sets a signal to the development community about what the public requires. If you're going to get hundreds of thousands of dollars in direct and indirect subsidy, if you're going to get preference in terms of density, if you're going to get the ability to take over public streets, if you get the ability to use eminent domain, then we expect a fair exchange. Right. And that's not what's happened here. It's not what's happened here. And so until we see that level of accountability and the representation that Gib mentioned about having local representatives, whether you're for the project or against the project, no one's represented formally in any process. Until that happens, the project can easily go off and never really meet the public benefits that it was promised to meet. Gentleman over there, yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. Let me come over here so you don't have to turn around. I'm Renee Collymore, and I'm the female district leader right here in the 57th Assembly District. And my family, we've been here since the 1940s. I say it everywhere I go because that's so important in today's time and what's happening. Number one, I would just like to know, why do we allow, and why do the powers that be allow the developers to come from somewhere else and build over here? That's the first part. Because if they live somewhere else, across the water, and they come here, they couldn't care less about what the needs are of this particular community. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, there are things that build and help and assist this gentrification process. Well, you have bids going on in residential neighborhoods like Fulton Street, which a bid is a business improvement district, and all that is a fancy tax that increases what you have to pay, and it increases, for instance, in my neighborhood. Now, there's not a bid on my neighborhood, but when all of these things take place and we're being pushed out and we have a lack of affordable housing, when I go to get a cheeseburger, I have to pay now $15. the cost of living is higher. When they build all of these units and they say it's affordable housing, you do know that's not really like affordable. That's not affordable for us. And they couldn't care less about true affordable housing. So then we have to take it upon ourselves to make sure that the powers that be do the right thing and not keep our eyes closed. And we can't give these developers, too much rope because they want to build what they want to build for their own pockets. We do know that. So we have to look at also the community benefits agreement. We have to look at who's actually the groups that are going to the developers with being combined and being joined to this agreement. A lot of these groups sometimes are already in the pocket of the developers. They're already doing business with the developer. They want something from the developer. So we have to look at these things so that when these things happen, we won't be shocked. So, once again, we must try to find developers who are local developers. People that that live here, that understand what's happening in our neighborhoods. Because if we don't do that, then we're going to be doing this again. So we look at Ratner, we complain about Ratner, and we do all these things. But there's a system that's set up because so many years ago, they already have where Brooklyn is going. And where Brooklyn is going is not low income, and it's not even really affordable. So we must stand and make sure that when we say affordable, that we have to understand that they have to understand that we mean affordable for us, not affordable for the rich. Because that's what this really is, affordable for the rich. So let's look at local development, green development, sustainable development for our communities. Thank you.
We have time for one more comment. I urge people to really, really think about this because other developers are looking at how this development has been rolled out. They're looking at that as like a blueprint for how business will be in New York City from now moving forward. So if this goes unanswered from the community, if we don't stand with our elected officials that were all at that press conference demanding more affordable housing that would be built faster, if we don't keep on this, I'm sure to think where we'll be. But we have to remain vigilant and know that this project has set a precedent. And we have to stay supportive of our elected officials because best believe they're getting heat from the other side. They're getting a lot of pressure. So they need to know that we stand with them.
I was going to say, we know exactly where we're going to be, and it's not going to be in Central Brooklyn.
Good afternoon, my name is Wayne Starks. Just a point of interest so people will know, there's more available empty units than there are homeless people in New York City. There's more empty units. So why can't we get some affordable housing? They can have their high rises, but why can't we still? There's so much apartments out here that aren't being used. So why can't it be used for the low-income families?
It's a very good question. So again, we've been sharing stories. I don't want people to leave here feeling like we just had a therapy session with sharing each other's stories. I want people to know that there is action that you can take. Excuse me. Please do not leave without signing this petition. So there was a sign-in sheet when you came in. That's just a sign-in sheet. This sheet that has the graphic on top about what we can do about it, that's the sheet, that's the petition that we're going to send to Governor Cuomo regarding the sale. Also, again, please be willing to share your stories. We maybe will have you share your stories publicly. So if you're interested in doing that, please see Michelle or Sabine right here from Fifth Avenue Committee. Again, it's really important that we connect people's lives and faces to these numbers and figures that are being doled out. If they don't really think about the people, if they don't really think about their families, if they don't really think about the community, they can just traipse on like they've been doing. So we have to remind them that this is our lives, these are our homes, these are our families. And it's something that we very much invested in, regardless of the money that they've been spending. So again, please take action with us, stand with our local officials, and also take responsibility for your own community. Find out where your community boards are, when they're meeting. A lot of information that happens with the community boards regarding development, regarding jobs that are available. So get active. Stand with us as we demand this housing sooner rather than later, and send this petition to Governor Cuomo.
One last quick comment. You all probably have friends who couldn't be here today, family members, neighbors who are concerned about what's going on with housing in Brooklyn. They couldn't be here today to sign the petition. They can still sign it on the Brooklyn Speaks website at brooklynspeaks.net. So please tell your friends and your neighbors that they can sign this petition and join with us at brooklynspeaks.net. Join our email list and we'll keep you informed as to how the campaign is moving forward.
Is there a deadline for the presentation of the petition, and is there a plan to expand the outreach for it?
There's going to be lots of expansion of outreach. There is no deadline, but don't wait. Don't get online and get connected, and tell your friends as well to sign the petition and stand with our elected officials. Thank you.
Several people shared their story. Thank you very, very much for sharing. And anyone else who wants to come up privately and share, because we are collecting, and we'll be following up with some people and are collecting stories to share with the powers that be. That way, as Marjana said, we kind of put faces to the numbers. It's very, very important that we do that. And I just want to thank Brown Memorial CDC, Marjana, Marcus, Reverend Miller, and all of you for being here, and I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much, everybody. And please follow up with us, because we'll definitely be